In these next series on early pre-Islamic Arab civilizations, in order to expose the whitewashing of history within Islamic sources, who only emphasize Islam's importance to the Arabs and its civilization. For example, here is another article called Arab Contributions to Civilization. It only talks about the Islamic period and how, quote unquote, the Arab civilization brought together Muslims, Christians and Jews, going on to say how it unified Arabians and other nations. This is not true, as evidenced from Islam's very own sources. Further reading can be done in the book Islam the Honest Truth, and also viewing these video series. Islam was detrimental to the Jews and Christians who were persecuted by Muhammad and by the subsequent Muslims who followed in his footsteps. Jews and Christians were completely driven out of the Arabian Peninsula. That said, Muslims were not even united amongst themselves, with the constant infighting and killing from the very beginning of Islam. Nonetheless, the article then goes on to mention the years between the 7th and 13th centuries when talking about Arab civilization, completely disregarding the Arab history before Islam and the civilizations that existed in Arabia that made huge contributions to human civilization. In Muslim majority countries, Christians are still persecuted even today in many parts of the world, as these and many other research show. In the year 2023, there are still no churches or synagogues in Saudi Arabia. In contrast, in non-Muslim majority countries, mosques are set up wherever Muslims live. In this article by renowned historian and professor who is of Jewish origin, Dr. Simon Sharma, who taught at Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, and currently at Columbia University, he mentions, as found from within Islamic sources, how Muhammad massacred Jews. For example, as this hadith explains, not too different from the behavior of the Nazis towards Jews, Muhammad even checked boys' pubic hair to see if they should be killed or taken prisoner of war. Question: even if the adults engaged in battle, what is the logic in killing innocent boys who had just grown pubic hair? At any rate, in this article, Professor Sharma correctly mentions how, according to Islam, Jews and Christians have the status of tolerated inferiors called dhimmis. This is hardly respecting and uniting people. After all, Muslims would not like it if they were the tolerated inferiors in any society, so why should anyone else accept it from them? After having dismissed the claims that Islam and Arabs gave rise to its civilization and how it benefited everyone, another important pre-Islamic Arab civilization, completely disregarded by Islamic sources when talking about its contribution to civilization in a positive manner, from which there are many, but for the purposes of this video, a cursory mention of the Sabian Kingdom will be done. It has a history from 1200 BC and was located in today's region of Yemen. By the 8th century, The kingdom extended to parts of Africa and to the coasts of Saudi Arabia. Ancient artifacts evidencing its ancient origins have been unearthed. Unlike for the city of Mecca, where ancient artifacts have never been found of it being inhabited from the time of Abraham, or even as far back as the Sabian Kingdom. Here is a bronze man unearthed from the time of the Sabian Kingdom. To give some context and an idea of its history and significance, this statue was already 1,000 years old as Muhammad was being born. Such was the importance of its civilization. Its accounts are mentioned in both the Bible and also in the Quran, though in a derogative and negative manner, specifically in the story of Solomon and Queen Sheba. At its prime, it was a very wealthy, prosperous kingdom and inclusive, with a female leader who was just and fair. As the Sabian Kingdom was one of the most important Arab civilizations before the arrival of Islam, here is a master's thesis with the title Tracing the Genesis of Arabian Civilization in Sabian Kingdom. It's written by a Muslim acknowledging its role as being the antecedent to later Arabian civilizations. Such was the prosperity of the kingdom that the land was known as Arabia Felix, which means fortunate or prosperous Arabs, so named because it was an area known for wealth, innovation, and elaborate palaces. More on the historical evidence citing the prosperity of the region from ancient historians will be shown in a future video. For preliminary reading, here is a book called Arabia Felix from the time of the Queen of Sheba, published by University of Notre Dame Press. In terms of its technological advancements, they built the world's first dam. References to its breach, flooding, and the subsequent devastation are briefly mentioned in Quran 34:16. Ironically, its wonder as a major architectural building is never mentioned. Here is a picture of the ruins of the Great Dam in 1988. As it is considered to be the oldest dam in the world, today it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, thus being recognized and given credit, especially in view of how long it was built, and the prototype for future dams. Notice that the status of it as an architectural wonder was acknowledged by a non-religious, neutral organization, not by the Quran or Islam. So in conclusion, let it not be said or heard that only Islam's arrival determined Arab civilization. Arabia, its people, and civilization existed long before the arrival of Islam. Islam did not add to it. If anything, it was detrimental to other religions and even to themselves. The Sabians were some of the most prosperous people of their time, so much so they were called Arabia Felix, meaning prosperous or happy Arabia, by ancient Greeks and Romans. Its history, evidencing its long past as a civilization, is archaeologically attested. The same cannot be said for the city of Mecca, or the claims found within the Quran or Islamic sources for its own religion. The Sabians built the world's first dam, a lasting legacy as it was the prototype from which all other dams were built. In the next video, the Sabians' influence on the religion of Islam will be discussed, specifically how Islam took many aspects wholesale from the religion and then repackaged it as its own.